We just stalled. There's Jeff. Today, what I wanted to talk about was beginner bikes.
Disco.
Today we are on the CBR again. I was gonna ride the Ducati, but I needed to come by the office first, and I needed to bring some stuff in the Suburban. And this bike was already here, so instead of going all the way back home, just decided to cruise out on the CBR for the day. So had a couple of meetings, got some stuff done. Now I gotta go have another meeting, go make a payment, and then go meet with another client. Got some people coming in, looking at the studio, the podcast studio, getting that thing filled up and going. So, but today, what I wanted to talk about was beginner bikes, because I know they're it's a popular topic, and it's a topic where there's a lot of different opinions on it, and there's a lot of different ways that you can go. So coming from someone who was that guy who started on a 600, when I definitely should not have started on a 600. It was actually the exact same bike that I'm on right now. It was a 2006 CBR 600. So I was that guy that thought that I could ride a full-size motorcycle just because I grew up riding dirt bikes, and learned that lesson the hard way. So I started out when I was 18 years old on a CBR 600, and I mean, that was back in 2006. So the beginner bike options were, oh look, we just stalled. Problems of the older bike. Like I said, this is a 2006. Anyways, so back when I was first getting back on, getting on a street bike. What's up, buddy? Little ruckus. Really, your options were like a Ninja 250 or a like a Honda Rebel, or like a Dual Sport or something. So looking back now, as an adult and what I know now, I wish that I would have started on something smaller. I wouldn't have, most likely would not have ended up wrecking. And so looking back to when I started, I wish I would have started on like a DRZ 400 or some kind of Dual Sport. Not really sure exactly what all was available back then, but I know the DRZ 400 was. That would have been a good place to start for me, especially since I grew up riding dirt bikes. The ergonomics would have been pretty much exactly the same. Like I rode at the motocross track and stuff, but I never raced. It's like I mostly rode in the woods and stuff anyways. Plus, that would have given me a bike that would have been, one, more economical, safer, not as fast. I would have been more comfortable on it, and I could have also gone and ridden off-road if I wanted to. So yeah, for me, 20 years ago, I wish that I would have started on a Dual Sport. But with that being said, in 2024, the beginner bike category is just insane. I mean, every manufacturer has a beginner bike, and not just that, they've got like beginner bikes, and then like intermediate bikes, and then you know, mid-level bikes, and then expert bikes. You know, you can just keep upgrading and upgrading forever until the end of time. So yeah, some of your options now, like you've got nobody's really doing many 250s anymore. Everything's kind of there's Jeff over our boys over at Pandora's. But yeah, I mean, so now you can start with, I mean, you can start with a Grom or a Z125. You can start with a 300. You can start with a plethora of 250 and 300 dual sports. Like, I've got the CRF 250L. I wish I would have started on that bike. You've got a lot of supermotos that you can start with. You got a lot of smaller cruisers you can start with. ADV bikes, not even just dual sports. I mean, you could go with like a KTM 390 Adventure, all that stuff. I mean, there's so many bikes to start with. And so, you know, since today we're on the sport bike, we might as well talk about some of the beginner sport bikes and where I think you should start. So, I mean, really for me, like, if you've never ridden a bike at all, starting with a Grom, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of debate on that. You can start with a Grom. A Grom will get you in trouble real quick because you think that you're not going to get hurt, but you actually will real quick. I mean, those little bikes will get out from under you really easy. And just want to make sure I'm still recording here. Yeah, we're good. And so if you've never ridden a bike, that might be a good place to start because it's not as intimidating. Plus you're getting, you know, a clutch and 5 gears, and you get to learn the mechanics of a motorcycle on something that's a little cheaper, and it's pretty economical. And Lord, those things get between like 70 and 100 miles to the gallon. But yeah, but if you've ridden motorcycles before, if you've ridden dirt bikes and stuff like that, I'd probably either start, especially if you've ridden dirt bikes, start with a dual sport or a supermoto. Honda's got the CRF 300L, the 300L Rally. Those are both really good beginner bikes. You don't have to be afraid of dropping them. That's a good thing. They're cheap. They're cheap to work on. They're reliable. You can learn everything you need to learn on those bikes, and they're cheap to ride, they're cheap to operate, they're cheap to service. That's a good option. So you can get a 250 or a 300L and convert it to a supermoto like I did, or you can keep it as a dual sport and then also ride off-road if you want to. Those are great beginner bikes. And then if you want just like a supermoto, KTM, I mean not KTM, Kawasaki has their KLX, I think it's a KLX or KDX, I'll have to look which one, but it's a 300 supermoto, so it comes straight from the factory as a supermoto. It's very low power, the horsepower is in the 20s. It's a cheap bike again, so if you know that you're just going to ride street and you like kind of the supermoto vibe, I keep saying KTM because we just passed Pandora's, the Kawasaki, then yeah, go with that. I mean, that's a great little bike. Those are going to be reliable. They're going to run forever. So that's a good one. It's not really a sport bike, but they're a little sportier. But as far as like sport bikes go, you've got the CBR 300, which is a good bike. They're a little heavy. You know, you've got the Ninja 300. Suzuki's got their entry-level sport bike. So those are not bad. Those are good bikes to learn on. Like I said, low horsepower, cheap, things like that. And then you can kind of, the thing is, like, you want to kind of look ahead of like where you're going to go from there, because like I said, you have like your entry level straight up beginner bikes, but then you also have like kind of an intermediate beginner bike. So if you have no experience at all, go with a 250 or a 300. Learn on that. Low seat height, lightweight, easy to maneuver. Those bikes will be good for you. If you've got a little bit of experience on a dirt bike or off-road, or you've ridden motorcycles before and you want something you can kind of grow into, I'll be honest, I've got to kind of, you know, let's talk about the ZX400 or the ZX4 RR, the Kawasaki 400. It is a Sorry, I had to get going on the interstate there. But yeah, so that's a 4-cylinder. It's an inline 4. It sounds amazing. And I think it's got like 70 something horsepower, and it redlines at like 14,000 RPMs, which is just insane. And I'll be honest, I want them at minimum. I'm gonna test ride one. But I wouldn't mind owning a bike like that. It's lightweight, it's nimble, it revs to the moon, and apparently a tune and an exhaust will do a lot for that bike. I mean, imagine a bike that light and nimble that revs that high with like 80 horsepower on it. Like, that's fun, and that's something that you can grow into, because in the lower rev ranges and stuff, it's not gonna just rip your face off, and you can still ride it around pretty easy. And then as you kind of like get comfortable with it and grow into it, then you can do the tune and the exhaust and get a few more horsepower and things like that. So I think for like an intermediate sports bike, the Kawasaki 400RR, like that's a good bike. That's a good option there. And then like I say, if you have really no experience, go with like a 250 or a 300, and there's so many options. I mean, you can get like a super sport style. You can go with a naked, like the CB300 is a good bike. The KTM 390 Duke is an amazing bike. If you're wanting like something that can double as a track bike, to where you can just learn the basics and really learn good maneuvering and how to work your brakes and how to go into a turn properly and carry your momentum and stuff like that, and a bike that you're not going to be able to just rely on the power all the time. Like a KTM 390 Duke would be a great bike. Even the RC 390, both really good bikes. And it's just, like, you can't really go wrong with how many options you have nowadays. It's just hard to go wrong with a beginner bike if you get a bike that matches your skills. I think that's the main thing, is finding that balance of what matches your skills and something that you're not just going to get deathly bored with within a few months. And that's why there's so many different tiers. You know, like, you jump from a 250 or a 300 straight to a 600, like, that's a huge jump. Like, you're going from 20-30 horsepower to anywhere from 100 to 130 horsepower. That's a big difference, and it's not much heavier of a bike. I mean, this bike is almost 20 years old, and it's got like 100 and something horsepower. And so this bike, for a beginner, i.e. myself, I learned the hard way. This bike was too much for me to handle as my first street bike. But also, I think this is too much of a bike. This or any other 600 Super Sport is going to be more than a beginner rider who has only ridden on a beginner bike 250 or 300 needs to be on as well. So that's kind of the issue there. So that's where there's so many different options and so many different bikes that you can go with. I mean, if, like, say you go with Honda, because I'm on a Honda now, you can go with the 300, then you can upgrade to the 500, then you can go from the 500 to the 650, which is a pretty cool freaking bike because it's a 4-cylinder, and the horsepower range is in the 90s. So it's still kind of rideable. The ergonomics aren't too bad on it. And then you can go from there to a 600, where you're up in the 120-ish horsepower range. And then after a few years, you can go up to a liter bike if you need. I'm one of those that don't, I don't really believe you need a 1,000cc sport bike on the street. You're never really going to be able to use a bike that you can do 100 miles an hour in first gear. It's kind of pointless to me. But yeah, that's just my opinion on that. So yeah, that's where I'm at. For a beginner bike, when it comes to a sport bike style, especially if you're not wanting something like a supermoto, start with a 250 or a 300. If you have no experience, if you have a little bit of experience, a 400 is a great place to go. But I'm really for the ZX4RR. I think that's a sick bike. I hope some of the other manufacturers follow suit on that. That'd be really cool to see some more kind of middleweight bikes with a really high revving inline 4. Because let's be honest, it's really hard to beat the sound of an inline 4 sport bike. So yeah, So with that being said, I'm gonna check out. I'm gonna go take care of this meeting, and then I'll see y'all on the next one.